If everybody could please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chair moves for approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements. Facilities meeting next will be December 18th, right here in this room at 7 a.m. And the regular board meeting and the organizational meeting will be January 8th, our next school board meeting at 6 p.m. right here. I'd like to invite our Principal Jolene up to share and share the success.
Awesome. And I'll ask Cormac if you can come on in. All right, good evening. So I'm Jolene Herfel, the principal at the high school. I'm very proud to be here this evening and share with our school board members our National Merit semifinalists. Cormac Schaefer, whose parents Paul and Kristen are in the back, and also Natalie Miner, who is not able to be here this evening, daughter of Jim and Stephanie, are our two National Merit semifinalists for this year. When you think about the National Merit, the way it kind of comes about is all of our juniors, not all, but many of our juniors took the PSAT test last year in their junior year. Depending on how their score goes, they end up qualifying as a semifinalist. And both Natalie and Cormac ended up qualifying as National Merit semifinalists. When you look at the data or the stats with this, it starts with roughly 1.3 million juniors across the country took that PSAT exam last year, and the semifinalists represent a nationwide pool representing less than 1% of high school seniors this year. So Cormac and Natalie definitely represent a very high level of student and have that caliber of student that comes not just in their success, but it's also a great benefit to our school. So I want to congratulate Cormac and also congratulate Natalie, even though she's not able to be here this evening. When the National Merit Scholar Program looks at who they are trying to highlight, they're looking specifically at that score, but as he continues on and as Natalie continues on in the application process, they're also recognized for a couple other things. They're recognized for their hard work ethic. They're also recognized for their likelihood of being successful or highly successful within a very rigorous college level coursework. So it's not just do well on this test, but it takes a combination of a number of other things to end up at being recognized as among that top 1% of this year's seniors within the nation. So I'd like to congratulate Cormac and Natalie. They will find out what their next level is. There's a number of different things that happen. They could be recognized as a National Merit Scholar. They also have a number of doors open to them related to scholarships and other opportunities that they fill out different things, and then Cormac's been in the process of doing that, as has Natalie. And those pieces of information will come over the next few months, but that final designation of National Merit Scholar comes right around early April in 2024. So we're excited to see what happens, but in the meantime, incredibly proud of Cormac and Natalie. I do want to thank the school board. I want to thank their parents, who are some here also this evening. It is the partnership of how our school works together along with our parents to create a fantastic experience for our students. Again, not only for Cormac and Natalie to be very strong students, but also it gives back to our school, to their peers, and to our teaching staff. We're incredibly proud of them, so I'd like to congratulate Cormac and Natalie. I'm going to have Cormac share. Are you comfortable sharing real quick if you want to come on over here? Just a little bit about what his plans are or what he currently is thinking about moving into post-high school.
Currently I think I'm planning on doing computer science in college, and if I had to pick a college or what I'm currently hoping to get into, it's Carnegie Mellon. Pretty good school for that.
Pretty good. You can shake all our hands. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Awesome, nice job.
Congratulations.
Next, I'd like to have Jeff Peterson come on up. Share the success.
You need help holding something there, or you got it?
Oh, no, I've got it a bit, but thank you. Thanks for having us here tonight. I am the activities director at Mount Westonka High School. And with me tonight I have Alex Barnes, also known as Barnesy. And his parents, Heather and Kendall, are here to join us today. Barnesy is currently a member of our boys hockey team. He's participated in golf, lacrosse, and in football. He currently carries a 3.969 GPA, and he's interested in a career as a pilot, but has yet to determine what school he'll be attending.
Really? I'm just looking at the sweatshirt going.
My mom bought this.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a statement.
So,
In North Dakota.
So Alex, he's currently in his second year as a member of the Student Advisory and Leadership Team, acronym SALT, and it is a state high school league committee. Alex is currently one of 11 students in the state of Minnesota to be involved in this committee. Purpose of the committee is to work with members of the state high school league to create common language and help set up some expectations in various different ways, and to really develop leadership skills using student voices. And so Alex and I spent a couple of days putting together some things to talk about, but I brought a poster along tonight to kind of represent and share some of the things that these students have developed over the last year and a half. And I'm going to let Alex talk about them. So, come on up.
Good evening, I'm Alexander Barnes. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. Thank you for having me. So, here is our top categories that we focus on as a group. First, we have leading by example. That is being positive, being a good teammate, being a good athlete, being good to the other team. Here we have follow LMS-HSL, school and venue expectations. Just respect the place you're in. I mean, it's a great privilege to have the places like Thaler, Pond, the gym, the WAC. It's a privilege to have these things, and so take care of them while you're here. Down here we have speak with honor and thoughtfulness. So like, don't say things that are going to harm people. Don't say things that are, just don't say bad things in general. Very self-explanatory. Use the power of social media for good. I mean, as a student, we see a lot more with the social media than, say, Mr. Peterson does. We know a lot more things that go on in the social media world. And so that one we've touched on a lot, on trying to see what we can reduce harm from. Support those harmed by words or actions, so sticking up when it's right. And there's been quite a few cases in the previous year of racism, a lot of other stuff in the state that we are trying to act on. We have honor each contestant, everyone involved. So once again, just being a good athlete, being a good person out there while you're competing with others. And lastly, we have hold yourself to high standards in sportsmanship. Sorry, it's hard to see. Just be the better person out there. I mean, if you're going to come across people who are not going to be competing the way you'd like them to compete against you. So you just got to be the better person. Go out there, show respect, even if you may not be getting the respect back. And so.
I'd like to thank the school board for having us here tonight, and thanks for everything that you do.
Jolene must have grabbed it.
Oh. Yeah, she did.
Mr. P, I was just making sure
Next, we'll move on to the truth and taxation presentation. Kathy?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Miller. I'm the Finance Director. And tonight we will be conducting our Truth and Taxation hearing.
That salt banner probably applies.
Anyway, before we jump into the numbers and the truth and taxation process, I'd like to take just a moment to review the levy process. Each August, the state of Minnesota opens up the summer levy system for school districts, and that is aligned with the state funding levels. Our data is entered, and then the Minnesota Department of Education provides us with our proposed tax information. At our September 30th meeting, we set our proposed tax levy, and if you remember, we set that at maximum. From there, we turned our information into Hennepin County. They go ahead and calculate the taxes, and after that point, their next step is to issue proposed tax statements to our property owners. That's also also known as the Notice of Property Taxes Truth and Taxation Statement. We are, as part of that process, we're required to hold a hearing, which is our purpose here tonight. And then lastly, on the board agenda later, you will be taking action to actually certify the school's levy tonight. And before I leave this slide, I just wanted to touch base on the truth and taxation hearing, or statements, excuse me. We had an election, as you know, on November 7th. The information for that levy is not on the proposed statements. At the time that those statements went out, we didn't know whether the election was successful or not. And that's true for any district in the state. So if you did have a successful election, you will see that information, just the building part, on the on your spring statement when it comes out in the final. So again, please keep in mind that there's a footnote that indicates that adjustments will be made for voter approved levies on your spring statement. Okay, and again, the truth and taxation law requires each jurisdiction, the counties, cities, school districts, to have a truth and taxation hearing. And again, on the statement, we will be talking specifically about the school taxes. Sorry about that. All right, there's 4 requirements of the truth and taxation hearing that we'll take care of tonight. We will be discussing taxes payable for 2024. Again, that will be local property tax only that we'll be receiving next school year. We'll discuss the budget. We'll discuss our percentage of increase and why we are asking for the increase by category. And then lastly, we'll give the public time to comment. The slide before you is our budget publication, and this display was in our local newspaper following the budget presentation by Bergen KDB of our audited financial statements. On the left-hand side, it reflects our actual 22-23 revenue and expenditures. The yellow column in the middle is our fund balance, and then on the right-hand side is our adopted budget for the 23-24 school year. Copies of our completed financial documents and this budget document can be found on our website. Any board members or public also wanting a copy can contact Superintendent Borg or myself, and we're happy to get that information to you. Before we get into the details of the levy by fund, I'd like to give you just a quick overall look of the levy. Our levy is divided into 3 different funds: general fund, community education, and debt service. The next column indicates what we had certified last year, page 23. The proposed column is actually what we're talking about here tonight for the hearing, page 24, the difference and the percentage. You can see that the proposal tonight is for a levy of $20,888,000, or an increase of $5.3 million. And again, we'll start right in with general fund. Again, this slide gives a recap of the general fund levy by category. I'll touch on the three main categories that make up the difference of the $1.8 million increase. And I'll start with the first line that indicates our operating referendum. As you're aware, on November 5th, 2019, Westonka residents approved a 10-year, two-step operating levy in support of students. Instead of asking for a large increase up front, the levy increase only was accessed when needed by the district. So this two-step levy gradually designed to bring the Westonka per pupil student funding closer to those of our neighbors such as Orono and Minnetonka. The second step of the levy is reflected in the second column, the page 2024, and it includes $350 per student plus inflation. And that is scheduled to begin again next year, 2024, through taxes payable 2029. So again, that makes up the difference on the first line. The second line is also one of our bigger increases, and that is our capital projects levy, which was renewed. However, this is attributed to an increase in property values. And then the very last line, I'll also bring your attention to reemployment. We had a prior year larger negative adjustment because of unemployment expenses that was kind of a pandemic one-time related adjustment that we won't see again. The other items in general fund are fairly similar to the prior year: long-term facility maintenance, operating capital, safe schools, career and technical, and we also have a few levies that we do for our intermediate district 287. The next fund is community service. Community service provides enrichment programs for all levels within our school district that are outside of the K-12 education program. There are 6 categories here where we're levying in: the basic education, early childhood family ed, home visiting, school-age child care, and adults with disabilities. The larger correction we have for a prior year adjustment is in our school-age child care program known as Adventure Club. And the last fund we'll touch base on tonight is our debt service fund. And our debt service fund is based on our annual debt schedules for the district's outstanding bonds. The annual levy is basically the payment for the principal and interest that we need each year to meet those obligations. Last year, that included our 2012 bonds, our 2016 bond, and our abatement bond. The difference in the proposed 24 levy is on November 7th, we had approved an election for the 2024 building bonds. And that first installment is included in this line, and so that makes up the $3.3 million. Again, that's our first year of principal and interest, basically. This chart displays Westonka's certified levy trend over the past 5 years. And you can see on the far right-hand side that the levy that we're discussing tonight is higher than the previous 4 years. And those are primarily, again, because of 3 voter-approved items. The 2019 levy, which is 2-step, and again, the second step falls this year. The renewal of the capital projects, again, that's property tax values. And then lastly, our bond from last month's election. All right, this chart displays all school districts located in Hennepin County and how their school taxes compare on an estimated home of value of $600,000. As you can see, quite not all fitting on one page, but as you can see, the bottom 2 lines are Westonka, and that we are clearly the lowest taxes in Hennepin County. The very bottom line in red is our preliminary tax before we knew whether or not the election would pass last month. And the orange line does include the building bonds that were approved in November. And so even with the bonds, we still remain the lowest tax. And one other footnote, all the blue lines, all of our neighboring schools in Hennepin County, there are a couple, if not more, districts, they also had elections, and those increases are not included. I believe it was Richfield and Osseo, I believe. And so again, the disparity or the showcase of our taxes being the lowest would even be that much greater if those numbers were reflected. We take our residents' property taxes very seriously, and we're very proud of what we've accomplished for our students with these dollars. Accountability, good stewardship are of utmost importance for us, and for the local support of property taxes, we are very grateful. At this time, I invite any questions, comments, or Superintendent Borg, if you'd like to add anything that I may have missed. Or we do have Matt Hammer with us this evening as well.
You know, on that community ed slide that you had there, it showed that adult disabilities and stuff,
Yes.
looked like there was a
Big discrepancy.
big discrepancy.
From high to low, yeah, it
Yeah,
reduced.
and that, I just wondered if you could explain that a little bit to me. Adults with disabilities.
From 21,000.
I think that was a funding change, if I remember right. I think there's more picked up by the state, and there's different thresholds. I'll double check on that for sure, but I think it depends on your.
Less funding from the state?
Well, I think it looks like there's less, but it's actually picked up by the state. There's usually a state.
So less from taxpayers.
Right.
More from the state, and what
Yes.
you're saying, so the actual amount we're spending on that
Right.
isn't reducing.
Correct. It's not that we cut the program by any means.
That's
But it's probably
yeah.
more picked up by the state, or we also do some adults with disability cooperative, I think it's with, there's a consortium, I think it's based out of Monticello. So, but yeah, there's not a reduced program by any means, but it's
Okay.
just a different, where the source of dollars comes from.
I can sleep better now.
Yeah, you can, okay.
On that same slide,
Oh.
you said that the big difference was for Adventure Club.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. We have our summer program and after-school program called Adventure Club. And school districts statewide have an opportunity to levy for additional support for students with special needs. So if students are on IEPs and you need more support to keep the kids safe and to have strong programming, you have the opportunity to levy for those dollars. And things were quieter during COVID, and now that they're ramping up, we're having adjustments to catch up back to a normal level.
Okay, thank you.
In the other categories, it's obviously not as much money, but for 2024, it looks like there's 2 or 3 categories, the 140 to 128. Is the reasoning the same, or is there a per capita loss of students or something like that that accounts for less than in 2024?
Yeah, it could be some adjustments, and then also the early childhood funding, I believe, is based on our district population of children ages 0 to 5, and so sometimes you'll see a little bit of variation based on our census numbers, birth rates and such.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Kathy, my last
Oh.
meeting here, and you have been so wonderful. And I know with the whole last bond, there was a lot of criticism on our financial, what we do with our money, how we, us being, are we truthful, are we not? And I have been so proud to be part of this group and having you lead us, because you have been truthful, honest, upfront. I mean, it's wonderful. So thank you. I know
Yeah,
you probably took a lot of heat. And
Well, I appreciate that, and thank
Yes.
you for your service too. I
Yes.
appreciate your expertise and your enthusiasm and dedication for our students.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? If not, we'll move on to the student rep report.
Hello, everybody. My name is Olivia Adam, and I am currently a senior at Mount Westonka High School and also the vice president of our student senate currently. Today, I'm just going to be going over the 4 A's within our school district, including the activities, arts, academics, and athletics. So starting off with the activities, we have that Student Senate is having our weekend drive from December 6th to the 13th. This season, WeCan is looking for much needed personal items to help support our community. So we are going to be specifically targeting that in our marketing this year. And next, the DECA district competition is about a month away on January 7th. And all members are currently registered for their events and are getting ready practicing and writing their papers. Chapter projects in DECA are also hosting events like the upcoming pickleball tournament, and last week there was the reality fair at MWHS. Robotics is continuing to meet and get ready for their first competitions in the few upcoming weeks. Math League had their meeting on November 27th, and at this meet they placed second, and Tor Erdahl, Rohan Nella, and Zach Van Nelson were the top scorers. They look forward to hosting their next meet on December 18th and are hoping for a lot of success. The speech team hosted an interest meeting on November 8th, and their season is starting in the next upcoming weeks. And the National Honor Society hosted their annual Fall Blood Drive on November 15th. This had a lot of success from the community and overall high school students. Moving on from the activities, going into the arts, the MWHS Band is hosting their winter concert tonight at 7 p.m. in a few minutes at the Westonka Performing Arts Center. This will feature music performed by the concert band, symphonic band, and wind ensemble. The Westonka bands continue their concerts with their middle school bands, performing this Tuesday in the PAC. The 5th grade band goes on at 6, the 6th grade at 7, and then followed by the 6th grade band, a 7th grade band at 8. The MWHS Choir will also host their holiday concert next Monday, December 11th in the PAC at 7 p.m. This will feature music performed by Cantabelle, Bel Canto, and the concert choir, as well as Mad Jazz. The MWHS Theater is getting ready for their first season of MSHSL one-act competition. Auditions for the one-act, Coda Chrome, will be held in the PAC this Wednesday. Rehearsals for this competitive acting group will start on Friday, and they compete at subsections in January. And then lastly, in the arts, we have the GMS Theater. They wrapped up their annual musical recently. They performed to almost a sold-out crowd audience at their last and final performance. The cast, crew, and directors of The Little Mermaid Jr. put together a spectacular performance for our entire community. Moving on to the academics. Our high school, for the last 2 years, has been working really hard on our student attendance. And we are proud to say that we have gone from 91%, this was in the beginning of 2021, to about 93% right now in the beginning of 2023. Going off of that, the number of students with Fs at our school has decreased dramatically, going from 123 in the 2021 year to almost 48 in the 2023 year. And then lastly, going into the athletics, Mount Westonka wrestler Cooper Rowe represented Team USA in the U15 Pan American Wrestling Championships in Panama and was crowned double championship in both of the wrestling competitions. The dance team also had success last weekend at their first competition on Saturday in Lakeville South. Varsity placed second in both kick and jazz. The wrestling team had their season opener last Saturday at Fridley for their first invitational, and the girls and boys hockey are having a great start to their seasons, with the girls about a month into their play and the boys team in their second week of games this week. The girls and boys basketball are just starting their seasons. Last week the girls started some of their first few games, and this week the boys are looking for a win. The Nordic and Alpine skiing will start competition soon as they are waiting for some snow so they can get out practicing. And then lastly, the boys swimming is just starting their season with their first meet in the next few weeks. That's all I have for you guys today. I know that was a ton of information all at once.
Olivia, do you mind sharing a little bit about the reality fair with board members?
Yeah,
what that
yeah,
is?
of course. I had a feeling that one was probably gonna come up. The reality fair was over 2 WIN sessions, so it was 2 sessions that all of the seniors and junior class got to go to, and it was led by a company called Wings Financial, and that company was there to give presentations to the students about how they can be financially successful and how to, simple things as well, like how to write a check and all things like that. And then this past week, they conducted a reality fair. So each student was given a packet upon their arrival, and this packet had information about their salary and their annual taxes and all of this. They were able to go into a reality fair and then kind of conduct like various scenarios with some of the stations. Overall, it was just there to teach students about how to be financially smart and independent.
Was it a good experience?
Yeah, it was great. It was good to learn about, and it
Was
was.
this first time?
No, it's happened
Yeah.
at least last year. I know probably more than that. First of all, the DECA program was involved in this, but we had a lot of parent volunteers. I think we had, 30
Yeah, we
different parents from here, Wings Financial, other corporate support. But when you get your packet, you find out you might get some really good news with your packet, or you get some very unfortunate news.
Someone
But-
I knew was a forklift driver, so.
But if you got news that all of a sudden it could be things that happen to your insurance, or it could be of you just lost your job, or you lost certain benefits. And so they're being taken through these cases. Then the reality fair is then all of a sudden they either get more good news or more bad news, and how do you respond? And what levers can you pull and adjust? And so when you go through the different steps that they are taken through, they're really well thought out. I mean, these kids experience a lot of things that they could see in their financial future, or hopefully not in their financial future, but it allows them to engage with professionals in some meaningful discussions. So I really like how it starts out, where it's everything from what is your credit score and why is a credit score important, to things like checks, then to kind of going through the scenarios. So it's a large effort. Just want to compliment the DECA program and all the parents that participated in this. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I'll pass that on to them, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Olivia.
Do you guys have any other things you'd like more details about, or questions or anything?
Just when do you find time to study with all of those?
Yes, for sure. It
So you said,
definitely packs-
you said the failing students dropped from 100 and something to 48, but you said almost 48?
Yeah, that was just a,
Does that mean we're at 47?
No.
Oh,
Oh, dear.
failing, or like
We're
what?
at 49, which is almost down to 40.
Yeah. No, but that is definitely one thing that has got increasingly better over time. So
And that's an issue all
that's
school
great to
districts
hear.
are addressing. right?
Yes,
Especially
after
coming out of
COVID,
COVID, is
yeah.
attendance, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
of
Thank you
course,
very much,
thank you
Olivia.
guys for giving me the chance to speak here
Yeah.
today.
Now we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Ralph?
Actually, we're not doing that, we're gonna do that in January,
Okay, all right.
since I don't have it, that's what I was informed of today.
And, oh, yeah, it says it right here.
That's who reads this?
And just for the reason, when we have a turn like today where it's December 3rd and that pulls over,
Yeah.
sometimes that's hard to get into this next agenda, so you'll have that next one.
Are there any school board committee reports? I had a list sent out to everybody on that, for committees. So, committees that, you're gonna be on, if anybody.
When did you send that out?
Today.
Oh,
Yeah. So if anybody has any things they want changed or whether, I'll try to do the best I can. It stayed pretty much status quo, so. And then we'll move on to the finance report, Kathy.
Okay, I'm going to pop back up here just real briefly to give you our financial report, and I want to also commend Olivia for doing the financial literacy as an accountant. That makes me happy when you're learning these topics. Need to teach my own children that. This gives you our first 3 months, so October 1st, November 1st, December 1st enrollments. Again, elementary schools, middle school, high school, and it's been a real solid year. We had a little bit of a dip, and that's not uncommon before the holidays, and hopefully we'll see those bounce back, but again, it's gonna make it a lot easier to do the revised budget, having real stable, consistent enrollment. So again, we are at 2,403 students as of December 1st. Financial report through the end of November, we have received about a little over $9.5 million or 25.6% of our of our adopted budget. It's, again, our prior years did include the COVID funding, so you can see the federal line has a lot more in the last 2 columns where we just don't have a lot of that. So taking those factors out, we're really happy with the way that our revenues are pacing, and it shows that our budget is on track. And expenditures, we have expended $13.3 million of our adopted budget, or 37.2. And again, we feel good about where we're at going into the revised budget. Just a few other items going on in the business office. We had a real full agenda. Last Thursday, we had a finance committee meeting. We reviewed the levy data. We reviewed the truth and taxation hearing. We talked a lot about the bond sale, facilities, the budget calendar, enrollment, and then we also have an upcoming request for grounds and transportation services. And outside of that, we are gearing up for the revised budget and already looking at assumptions for the adopted 24-25 year. Any questions? Thank you.
Move on to the teaching and learning report. Mark?
So tonight, as I get myself set up here, this is the annual World's Best Workforce Report, and I'll go into detail about what that is.
As Mark finds his report, the World's Best Workforce Report, and the reason why it has that title is that is the title the state has given it. You might say, why did they entitle that such a title? You'd have to direct those to the state. We are obviously what they have titled it.
Since 2013, the way that it works.
It's an interesting name.
Yeah. There we go. So before I get started tonight, I always take an opportunity to just sing the praises of this district and the accolades. And I think it's really important when we're reviewing data, we just pause for a minute, and this is truly a high-performing school district. And it doesn't happen by chance. It's very intentional, the work that we do in the classrooms. It's the work that you do here at the board level, our administrators, the work that they do, and then in the classroom. And again, just to remind you of some of the wonderful things that are happening, as you've heard back in the fall, just top in state when it comes to MCA performance. And then recently, in the last couple months, we've received our School Digger ratings. So as a public school system, 7th in the state, and then they have a criteria of traditional schools. I can't tell you all of that, what that is tonight, but 1st in the state, and a 5-star overall rating. You know, and for me sometimes, it's like, it's great to have the 5 stars, and that's what parents are looking for in community. But I also know that when people are looking for schools and they call me, I always say, you need to make a visit. It's wonderful to see this, but you need to make a visit and walk in the schools to really see what's happening. And then the latest ratings have come out through the U.S. News and World Report, and Grandview Middle School, 10th best middle school in Minnesota, and Westonka High School, 17th best high school in the state. And you know the work that we're going to be embarking on here with the vote that passed with the bond, and the programming that we're going to be working on at the high school. It only gets better with that. So I just wanted to share that as we look at these results here. So World's Best Workforce It is, as Kevin was saying, is what the Department of Ed has coined as something that every public school system in the state of Minnesota needs to address. And that box over on the right-hand side are 5 goals that all school systems need to address. We can set the way we measure those goals, but the state is very intentional about everyone needs to address those 5 goals, from as kids enter our school system to when they graduate, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prepare our students while we have them from our preschool through graduation. And then, of course, we meld that into our strategic plan with goal number 1. So as we go into these goals, and you've seen these before, we've been doing this every year. When we look at the goal of school readiness, that is our pre-K screening. And we set a goal of 90% or higher. We want to see our preschoolers ready for kindergarten. So in 2022, so all the data is a year, it's always a year back. They screened 160 children. They deemed 140 were kindergarten ready, so about 88%. Just missed that goal, but very close. 16 students were referred to early special ed or to medical mental health specialists. And that's exactly why we do the screening. That if there is any kind of learning disabilities or challenges already at, when they're 4, that we get them into our system, we start working with the specialists. And I'm not so worried about that 88%, it's really more about catching those kids. And we do that every spring and in the fall before school starts. The next goal is all students by the end of 3rd grade are reading proficient. And we measure in the area of oral reading fluency, comprehension, and guided reading levels. And for the end of the 22-23 school year, we hope for at least an 85% proficiency rate. The oral reading fluency rate was 77%, comprehension 90%, guided reading level 82%. And to give you some context, in 22, oral reading fluency was at 70.8, so we made a nice jump. Comprehension was at 75.6, went up to 90. And the guided reading level, 89%, 82, it's in the ballpark. A lot of that is still some of the residuals of the pandemic. And this is when kids are, their learning is, fragmented, especially when they're young, you're learning to read, and now you have, issue working from home, learning from home and that. But we do always look at getting better and better. As I've shared with you, we have a new literacy program in our 2nd year, and we bring in intentional additional phonics instruction and phonemic awareness instruction that we do expect those rates to continue to climb. And we are very hard at work looking at what's happening with our students and what's happening there. So we're never satisfied, and we always are looking at what's the next step.
Didn't the state this past year change that goal a little bit? But I'm trying to remember, it's like now every student at every grade level is supposed to be this goal now, right?
So this will be the last year that I'll present on this particular goal. Okay. And then you'll hear me talk more about what is called the READ Act. And the READ Act is exactly what you're saying. Every year, we expect all kids to be reading at grade level proficiency. So that's where we talk about our MTSS framework that we're implementing. That comes into place, and not only by 3rd grade, but it's all the way through high school.
Okay.
Yep. The next goal is around closing the achievement gap, and I realize there is a lot of data on that right side, and I'll try to explain to you what we're measuring there. Well, in this goal, what the state wants us to do is to compare different groups of students. And at the state level, federal level, they do group students into different ethnic groups and also socioeconomic groups. So what we did here is that we're looking at our highest performing subgroup, it's white. And we wanted to measure against how our 2 largest subgroups, which is going to be special education, free reduced lunch, are performing on the MCAs. And what we're interested in is looking at the proficiency rates and the difference in proficiency rates. So what you see up here, with special ed, white group against sped group, proficiency rates, there was a gap of 23.68 points. So then we want to measure in 2023, was there any change? And actually, the gap slightly increased. But here's what happened. The white group grew faster than the sped group, and the proficiency rates increased more dramatically, and that was the difference. We did the same thing measuring with math. So the achievement gap between white group and free reduced lunch was 23.71. That slightly decreased to 22.86. And again, some of the caveats in that, both groups increased from where they were from 22 to 2023, but I want to point out that you notice the free reduced lunch group number, 147 students. And you notice that when you hit 2023, 243, it's like 100 and some more students. Why is that? Well, in the 21-22 school year, that's when lunches were free. You didn't have to even apply for any kind of assistance. So when in 2022-23, when we went back to pay for lunches, then the number of applications for free reduced lunch status went up. So that does skew the numbers a little bit.
How do you measure it going forward then if everybody's got free lunches?
So the state is grandfathering us this year and I believe next year, because that free reduced lunch number also drives our Title I funding. And there was concern, from school systems, like what's going to happen to our Title I funding, because it's dependent on your free reduced lunch count. So Gary, the answer right now is that we're grandfathered in this year and next year, and then we don't know what happens after that. So there's some variables in these numbers. In the
But
area,
won't the number drop? I mean, I understand it's grandfather, but won't less people be applying for that program if they know that their lunches are free anyway? So won't the numbers go down because of that?
that would be my conclusion.
Yeah, okay.
But we're able to use this number for the next couple of years,
Yes.
is what I'm hearing.
Oh, I got you. I
Yes,
see what
yes.
you're saying. Nice.
But I would conclude with you.
I'm a grandfather, I understand.
I got you. I wasn't sure what your grandfather.
Yeah. So there's some things in the horizon.
Been back that issue.
It's kind of the same story here, where in the area of reading, again, you'll notice the achievement gap between white and the sped group, it actually increased slightly. What happened here was, again, these numbers were more stagnant for both groups. And then with free reduced lunch, the comparison, the free reduced lunch number, capacity rate actually went down a little bit. And it's really hard to tease apart, well, what happened there. We can certainly drill down into the individual students, but part of this is going to be, I had 148 free reduced lunch students in 2022, it went up to 257. That's part of it. Here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter to me how many in that. What I care about is what are we doing with the data? What are we doing in our classrooms? What are we focusing on? And I can tell you with great confidence that when I meet with building principals and their school improvement teams, they're focused on this. They know their data, they know what's happening with their students. And as you talk about MTSS and what we call progress monitoring, those are the students that we've identified performing below grade level. And then if they're in what we call now like a tier 2 intervention, we progress monitor, which means we're assessing them every other week to track progress. So it doesn't go without, well, that's just the way it is. It's actually really, you really zero in and you hunker down into what are our next steps for improvement. The last two goals that I want to mention with you, this one is all students career and college ready by graduation. And then this one we look at the pre-ACT and ACT. And again, we're looking at the lowest performing group and the highest performing group. And so in this situation here, and it's student of color and white group. And again, we are mindful by the number of students that are in these numbers, but you can see the composite score, the gap is 2.5 points. And what happened here is that, again, the difference, the white group here just grew a little bit more faster than the other group, and so that gap is 3.7. So in that case, again, we zero in on what we can control, we zero in on who the students are, we really look at what's going on in the classroom with instruction and support with this. But again, it's really helpful data for us, not to make assumptions, but to be clear as to what's happening with our different student groups. The last data point that I want to share with you tonight is our graduation rate. And most people think that should be such an easy calculation. You know, you just take the number of students that graduate divided by, you know, the total number, and you got it, and you're done. I'll try to give you some context with that, because you'll see the 4-year graduation rate. This is at the end of 2022. That's the most recent data. It's 88.5. You start thinking, well, what happened? But then you take that same cohort and you look at the 5-year rate, it's 92.4%. And then if you look at the graduating rate in 2022, the 6-year rate is at 97.28. So to give you some context of what's happening, is that the graduation year of 2022, we had 8 students that were deemed dropouts. The way that's defined is that students simply withdrew from our high school and they did not enroll in another school somewhere in Minnesota. That's how the state defines a dropout. And a dropout can happen not just the senior year. In this case, it was a 9th grader way back, and 3 11th graders were a part of those.
So the
students.
9th grader that would have graduated in 2022,
Yes.
but they
dropped out of
in
9th grade. Yes,
2019 or something.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And we never found, the state never found a record for that 9th grader anywhere in the state of Minnesota. No. Could they have moved out of state and no one said anything? That's possible too. But that's how the state defines a dropout.
They carry it out for that many
They
years?
do. They do. Yep. Yep, they do. And then you have unknowns. Unknowns also count against the graduation rate. Unknowns are students that we expected to come back in the fall, and they moved away in the summer, and they didn't tell us. We have no idea. We expect you first day of school, and you didn't show up. We had 5 students during this year.
And those dropouts and unknown then are counted against, if you will, your
Yes,
graduation rate.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So what do we do about that?
So we got 200 kids graduating, so 11 kids, that makes a big
It
impact.
does, it does. So with unknowns, we get better and better now with this data. We know exactly who those 11 kids are, and we make efforts to contact these parents to let us know, did you enroll in a private school? Did you move out of state? Where is your child going to school? We expected you the first day, and we didn't get a call. And then there's a process in that situation that if we know they went to a private school or a different school, we change the code in our student management system so it pulls that student out of our rate. That's where you'll see some reflection in the 5-year rate. We found those students, so we changed the code so that the rate goes up. And then extended year, those are your special education students that do not graduate, but they continue on with their learning until up to age 21, 22. And then when they graduate, then they're added to that year's graduation rate. Why the 6-year rate is up to 97.28. So to me, you know what? It doesn't matter if there's 1 dropout or 8 dropouts. Those are still kids that matter to us, and we constantly are looking at what can we do differently. What is it that things aren't connecting for them so they can be successful? Because we all know you don't have a high school diploma, life is going to be hard. So we do everything we can in those situations. Now, looking at current data, the current projection for 2023, we're looking at right now about a 93.1% graduation rate. And there are the numbers, the number of dropouts we're tracking, the number of unknowns, extended year. And the official graduation rate will come out, it's usually sometime in the spring, usually April, May.
So that would be 4-year.
That's 4 years.
Yes.
So I think a couple points that I would make with this. One, when we hear the word dropout, we think of dropout and not going to school. But truth is, dropout could be that you're not going to Mount Westonka High School and you are homeschooled or you haven't communicated where you're going. It doesn't necessarily mean dropped out of school. We don't have confirmation of that. And so one effort for us is to, when, like Mark said, over the summer, we have 2,400 students, and you expect that they're going to communicate with you to move their records to their other school, or they're coming back to your school. And that's one thing that we have to work on, is when they don't show up, what was your choice and what is going on? But ensuring that you're continuing on with your education is what's key. The extended year, that's very intentional, deliberate, continued education. That should never, this is where this graduation rate doesn't make sense to me, because that's meaningful education that these kids are continuing on with, and it makes it appear that they did not graduate. Rather, they qualify for continued education through the age of 22. So these students have some developmental, cognitive needs that they benefit. And to have that be represented as not graduated, that doesn't seem like good reporting to me. All this being said, we're not only concerned that kids graduate, that they continue on with their education, but they do it at a high quality. And so there are still numbers in here that we have to continue to work at. But I think when you hear dropout, unknown, and extended year, and you see that in a percentage, that can be really misconstrued, different than what that all is. So I think we know that a lot of people aren't gonna dig into the conversation. They're gonna see a percentage, compare a percentage, and what we really care about is what's the meaning behind the numbers more than anything else.
So I'm assuming that these are state rules that you have to.
Right, correct,
I mean,
yes.
You have no
Yeah.
It
flexibility.
doesn't seem, yeah, it doesn't seem like a very meaningful metric. Just seems like there's a lot of noise in there. You gotta really understand a lot of detail to really actually absorb all
Yeah.
that, so.
You're right, there are certain things that you have to just play by the rules of how things work. But again, I'll just summarize what it does for us though. It does provide us data, it does provide us opportunities to really zero in on certain groups of students and really figure out what's the next step. And just as a segue with that, first of all, the report is posted on our district website. You can go under accountability, world's best workforce. All the data is there for anyone to see. And then when I come back at the January 8th school board meeting, I'll be doing a review and update with you on our multi-tier systems of support, which just plays hand in hand with students and their performance and their support. So that'll be at the next meeting.
Mark, on one of the slides that referred to our strategic plan, and it referenced 2020, 2021, how often do we revisit the strategic plan?
This one
right there, yeah.
Every three years.
So I would say we go over our goals every year as a team, and we continue to build goals in these 4 areas, but that's also something that we can and always should review. What are our goal areas so far?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a consistent strategic plan, I think that's totally fine, but maybe we just update the slide to reflect that it's, you know, current.
We'll take a look at that,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right,
Just
thank you.
a quick question, you know, when you're talking about when you pre-screen preschool kids, to make sure they're ready for
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of, what kind of measurements or factors are you taking into consideration? I mean, they're not reading at that age, right?
No.
Some are, yeah. I suppose the other ones that move on.
Yeah. You know, I don't have all the.
I mean, I know that's a
yeah.
little subjective, but.
They have very specific screeners, and a lot of it is just emotional readiness. And of course, some are gonna come in and they're gonna know their letters. Not all, they're gonna know their numbers, you know, what to attend, but a lot of times they're looking for emotional readiness. And then they'll dig into the literacy piece with the students too. And through those screeners though, they can determine if something's amiss. And that's what you really are looking for. Is there something amiss that we just don't see or a family member sees that we can catch them?
Is that something that's like standard for all districts, do you think? Or?
There's standardized screeners. There's different screeners available. But if you ever would like to dig into that, we can certainly invite you.
Well, I'm just curious, because I mean.
Mark, why don't we put that part of a TNL
Yeah.
Committee
Yeah.
report where we can share a little bit of detail of it?
Well, I'm just kind of curious, when you have these
Yeah,
kids that are in that, that have been specially screened, and how do they progress through the system? I mean, because there are kindergartners and they're going all the way through, so you're watching how they progress. I mean, are half of them normalized by the time they're in third grade, or, I mean, I'm just.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Like,
I will add that's a great thing. We could dig into.
The reason I'm bringing it up is because I know specifically from personal experiences from kids in other districts that had issues. And there were some districts that were very close by that were not screened that way. And they had issues, you know. I mean, they had, so I just kind of, that's why it kind of clicked in my mind.
Yeah.
If there were concerns about labeling, I mean, if all of a sudden, I mean, you know, if you're a 4-year-old and all of a sudden you get to be 5-year-old and you mature to that level, are they screened again at 5 years old? Or at?
Then they move into the screeners and the assessments we use for any grade level appropriate for that age. And you're right, Gary. I mean, that can be a hard conversation
Really?
with a
Yeah.
family. Like, you walk in, maybe you have your child screened, and all of a sudden you're going to get this information. Yeah, it is. But we're also of an opinion, we'd rather give upfront, honest information, and then the parent can decide what they'd like to do with that information. All right, thank you.
Move on to the superintendent's report, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna cover a few of our consent items and then action items. And then I'd like to recognize Kelly for her time on the board. For consent, I would just want to highlight that you now are doing your second reading of the academic calendar. And so with this approval, we will be putting that on our website. Parents always appreciate knowing what that is well in advance, and so I appreciate everyone's effort. We do two things when we do the calendar. One, we have a more detailed calendar for next year, which has all of our professional development days. And then we have what we call a shell calendar that goes several years out. And that really gives you your basis of your larger breaks. We know that families and programs like to know when we're gonna be on break. The reason why we wait with professional development days is they're a lot more intentional than just throw that day here. Sometimes we like to pair them together because of a special effort, and sometimes it can work better in a historical, what we've done historically. We have a number of action items for you today. One is, as Kathy presented in the Truth in Taxation hearing, to adopt the 23 payable 24 levy. I think she went over that in good detail. That was discussed at the September 11th meeting as well in the detail that we had at that time. Your next action item is actually my contract. I always consider it a privilege to work in this community, and I appreciate your consideration of that action item. We have two other contracts that are coming up. One is with Kraus Anderson, and we have John Unick and Dustin both here with Kraus Anderson. Kraus has been with us since 2011 as our construction management firm. It's really been a strong relationship for the Westonka district as they've seen both the 2011 and 2016 bond. We've appreciated our discussion of this next contract, and what you're approving is the ability for myself to sign that with Kraus. I feel like they've come up with a system that really compares well as they work with other districts across the state, and also the professionalism and the success that they bring us our project. One thing with Kraus and Wold, which I'll be talking of, is they do more projects for K-12 schools in dollars than any other firms. And so their experience does matter in what they produce, and we're pleased that we've been able to lead that. I appreciate the Finance Committee's work with that, and also Brian and Gary, your connection on that contract. We also have Wold's contract, and we have Elizabeth and Andy here with Wold. Andy's been with us also since 2012 when they came on. Paul Apkowski's the partner. He's not here tonight, but Paul has been here since 2012 as some of their engineers. And so as we start talking about taking on the boiler at the high school, they worked with different connections of maintenance with this since that time, and it's really reassuring when you get into a complicated renovation that they're understanding of our facilities. And so when we were talking about this bond, one thing that I was proud of is judge us by our work. And when we look what we've done in 2011 and what we did in 2016, I'm really proud of those spaces, and I'm confident we can continue to do that. And with Elizabeth, Andy, Paul, and the rest of the team, we're excited about signing that contract. Again, Finance Committee was connected to that as well. Next up, we have a resolution with the intention to issue the general school building bonds. And with us today, we have Matthew Hammer. Matthew is with Ehlers, and they have also been with the district for a number of years. Before 2011, Matthew, is there anything that you'd like to comment about this issuance that you'd like to share as far as steps or timeline?
Yeah, so just overall, we're on pace to sell the first issuance at an award at your January 8th meeting. So if you remember back prior to the election, we were planning to split the issuance into two issues for various reasons. And there's the resolution tonight really gives us the authority to move forward with the sale process, and then the district will be getting another underwriting rating in mid-December, and then we're planning to take bids on the morning of August 8th or January 8th, and then award later that night. And then anecdotally, I think interest rates were a little bit of a hot topic during the election. Rates kind of peaked out from where they've been going up through about mid-October, and now our interest rates have been coming down. And unlike mortgage rates that are quite a bit higher, tax-exempt municipal securities come with quite a bit lower interest rate. And our interest rate assumption here right now in our report that you would have seen tonight is estimated at 4.39%. We were at 5% pre-election. And I can say right now, if we were in market, the rates would be lower just because rates have been coming down. They came down quite a bit even the last 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to a good sale at the beginning of January, which is really typically a really good time to be in the market. So.
Really appreciative of the communication that Matthew not only provided the board through this process, but also when constituents had questions, his ability to answer those as well. And so thank you, Matthew and Shelby, for that. Lastly, we are looking at adding a paraprofessional position at Hilltop, and we have a policy for your approval. Before I get talking about Kelly for a minute, it's just again really appreciative of the community support of the renewal of the capital projects levy and the bond. We've started some of our smaller design groups now, and so the high school is beginning. We're working with security at Hilltop, Shirley Hills, and the Early Learning Center. We're looking at bus garage maintenance, And so really the projects that right now we're circling for the summer going into fall is security at Hilltop Shirley Hills and the early learning, bus garage maintenance, and then the tennis courts with pickleball line. I throw that in for our well-focused board member on that. And so with that though, we're really excited about kicking off these projects, and then the reason for those projects is that's ones that we feel like we can turn around. The lead times on what we need for these projects fit, and the design is one that can be accomplished. And so we know from a November passage, we need some lead time to get these things going. We'll be talking more about this at our facilities meeting here coming up this month.
Can I add one question, Kevin and Emily, just about the two resolutions? Do we need individual votes on those, or can they be just
a group vote?
Group vote, okay.
Lastly then, we're excited about David Olson, who's in attendance. He's going to be joining us on our school board, and so that will take place in January, those oaths with Brian from being appointed to being voted in, and then the rest of the board members elected, and so congratulations to all of you. Kelly ran in 2015, and in her campaign she said, "I'd love to serve the Westonka School Board simply because I have a strong passion for this community and the wonderful schools within it." And you look at Kelly's passion of where that formed for these schools, and one, she was raised here. She's an '88 graduate of Mount Westonka High School. She raised a family here. All 4 of her kids went to school here. In fact, one of her daughters, Grace, now is student teaching at the school. Her husband, Kurt, has worked here at Grandview and the high school and now the WAC for a number of years. And Kelly's been very, very involved as a parent. If it's the different boosters, anything her kids were involved in and more, she took an interest of, and then she put a lot of time and a lot of passion, and really had that both Mohawk and Whitehawk pride of that bridged the two. When Kelly was on the school board, she was a part of a number of exciting things. She came on, and that was right when the 2016 bond passed, and so she was very much on the facilities committee and integral in the construction of both the Performing Arts Center and the Activity Center. In 2017 already, we were renewing a levy, and in 2019 we were going for the levy increase. And all of that was in preparation. We knew we had to have operating funds to be able to make some more facility improvements, but we couldn't reverse that order. We had to put the operating funds ahead of some of those facility improvements. And so there was 2 campaigns in between there, leading up to obviously a lot of time that we spent on with 2020 with COVID, which Kelly was very much involved in and interested in how did we lead as a district in those areas. 2023, just this fall, the renewal of the capital projects levy and the bond referendum. Also in there was her great help in the purchasement of Game Farm Road 5910. And the money that she saved the school district in that process is absolutely fabulous. She's been very involved in different contract negotiations. She's been on Joint Parent Advisory, Curriculum Advisory, and also SEEK. To say that Kelly has a passion for this community really stems from a lifetime of being involved here. And I think one thing that you see board meetings, but when you go behind the scenes in committees, you see how that passion plays out. And that passion plays out by having strong emotions, passions for a direction. But it also comes with listening. And it also comes with how do we work with a group and what's best for all students and what's best for this district. And watching Kelly's leadership not only bring a strong voice, but a strong ear and strong effort to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do and do it well, is one thing that Kelly really represented this community very well in. our success is due to the DNA of many, and definitely Kelly led us to be more successful. And so Kelly, we thank you for your time. I like what Gary said, short timer. Nothing makes me feel happy when 8 years is considered short time. And, you know, but I really appreciate your leadership. I appreciate your passion, and I know that you're around and you're going to continue to be one of our largest cheerleaders, and also one to communicate how we can do a better job. And so with that all mixed together, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just might want to stay after that.
We have a small little gift for you that you can open when you want, but we are
Take us to Hawaii.
we're
Great.
and then really enjoy these next weeks.
And my daughter Grace is actually gonna do a long-term sub, so I'm out and she's in. I'm super happy.
Where's she student teaching?
Right now at Shirley Hills, and then as she moves on, Grandview Middle School for a long-term sub after she graduates. So it's moving.
Does she graduate this month, or is she?
Yeah, next week, or
Wow.
Friday.
Okay.
Friday? I think it's Friday, yeah. Yeah, and jumps right in.
We have the inside
Monday.
track on some good graduates, and so we're.
Yeah, and able to hand all 4 of my kids their diplomas. That was something that was super cool and special to, to do. And it's been awesome. I mean, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't.
Maybe some days, right?
Yeah, my passion. Some days now I'll be on the other side and I'll be supporting. So when you need me, I'm not gone. I'm just.
Well, I just want to echo or second what Kevin said about, you and I served on a lot of committees together, especially during some of the pandemic times, and maybe there were times where we all didn't agree, but you always were very professional, courteous, but yet still always had the passion for the group and the district and everything else, and I just always thought you carried yourself very, very well. So thank you for all that partnership and hard work during that really difficult time.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was a quick 8 years.
It was, and you blink, right?
Yeah,
I don't
really was.
blink. Pastor, now you're not a pastor anymore. I'm like, can I show my face in church? And can I holler?
Yeah, we'll
Now we're both done.
We'll have a short meeting afterwards to tell you the real.
Right.
Is that a closed meeting?
Yes.
All right. Chair moves for approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Move on to the discussion items. Chair moves for approval of action item 9A, approval of the resolution to adopt the 2023 payable 2024 levy. All in favor?
What, second, you need a second?
Oh, second, sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Chair moves for approval of action item 9B, approval of the superintendent Kevin Borg's 2024 to 27 contract. Does anybody have any questions?
Second.
All right.
Worth every penny. Don't let him go.
No. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair moves for approval of action item 9C, approval of contract with Kraus Anderson for construction management services. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Chair moves for approval of action item 9D, approval of contract with Wold Architects and Engineers. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay, slow down on these next two, I've got to fill out forms on them, so just so you know. Okay, go ahead.
You want it by syllable or?
If you could, that would be great. I'm slowing down in my old age, so yes.
All right, Chair moves for approval of action item 9E. Approval of the resolution stating the intention of the school board to issue general obligation building bonds, series 2024A, in the aggregate principal amount of approximately $44 million and taking other actions with respect thereof. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Right?
And we're gonna ask the same thing. Yeah.
Chair moves for approval of action item 9F, approval of the resolution establishing combined polling places for certain multiple precincts for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Is there a second?
I will second that.
So with this, by state law, we need to bring this before you each year so that these polling places are put in place. That doesn't mean there's an election next year, but it's something that for things to occur, you have to approve it on an annual basis. So you'll see this as long as that statute's in place for us to take this action.
Ron seconded.
I second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And chair moves for approval of action item 9G, approval of adding a special education paraprofessional at Hilltop Primary School. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair moves for approval of action item 9H, approval of the first reading of policy revisions. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Is there any other things people need to bring up? Over? No? Well, if not, I want to wish everybody a great holiday season, and it's been an exciting year. It's gone by quick. Got a lot ahead of us coming up. So with that, I would, chair moves for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.